Okay, so back to the trash of the universe. Okay, so this male here, Herb Baumeister. Okay, so they called him the I-70 Strangler. So the thing that was kind of interesting about this, so this was pulled up in the Department of Psychology at Radford University, Virginia, right? So they did this sort of like breakdown of everything, and of course, all the stuff that you would need to know is missing, right? So you would need to know how these parents were between the ages of birth till before 14, right? Everything after 14 is kind of like whatever, okay? Because you know he's already a sociopath. So this is kind of the age range, the general age range where they're talking about where it starts showing up. So by that age, it's already too late, okay? Now, everything that happens afterwards is going to be kind of like, here's the signs that he's this and that and this and that, right? So as you go down, okay, he found a dead crow in the road and put it in his pocket and placed it on a teacher's desk when she wasn't looking. So this is somewhere between the ages of 14 and high school. See, it says adolescence in between here, right? So right before high school. So we're talking about that junior high area, but 14 was technically like ninth grade or so. So yeah, I didn't do anything crazy like that at that age. I know, so there's some things that are kind of normal, or some, this is where it gets kind of tricky. So kids, when they're really young and when they run across, let's say, dead animals or something, they get kind of curious to it. And like, I even had this weird thing. I was talking about the fish eye thing. Oh my God. I'm like, they would have thought I was like Jeffrey Dahmer at some point. But how old was I there? Okay, so I was actually, been 10, 9, 8, maybe around 8 years old. So around 8 years old, there's weird curiosity with these fish eyeballs at the freaking grocery store because it looked weird. I'm like, is it alive? It was kind of bizarre, right? So you're a kid, you don't really understand it. So I started like pushing the eyeballs in at the store, like just pushing it, not like busting them or anything, but just like doing that. My parents were like laughing. They're like, don't do that, man. And then one day I was like, it's so weird. And then I popped him out. I was like, this is the grossest thing ever. But actually what happened, to finish that story off, yeah, I was so grossed out by it that it nauseated me. And then like, I didn't really want to eat fish. Like I was very anti seafood. There was a weird thing, but I would eat tuna because for some reason, like I didn't associate it with that. So even to this day, like I don't, you know what I mean? But if you went by that, you would have thought, oh my God, she's going to turn into Jeffrey Dahmer. I absolutely hate the story, but it's going to be helpful here because it's kind of weird. So kids will get curious about dead animals because I remember when we were in the country, like all of us kids were like, what the hell? And we found these like a ran over snake or something, or this dead cat, and it was just like, what the hell? So kids get just naturally interested in like what that is because they're kind of learning and it's just bizarre. However, we didn't take one and put it on the teacher's desk. It's a different thing. So I was just weird and I brought it to school onto my desk and I was just like totally creepy. Yeah, that's a I actually blame my dad for that because they kind of thought that stuff was, I don't know. That was a hard one to tackle because I'm like, okay, if I'm trying to tell you guys when to be concerned, they probably should have been concerned about that, but it worked its way out. No, I'm not into running around popping eyeballs out. But there was kind of a funny thing with my band thing, right? So with the name of that stuff, because there was a movie that kind of was like that. It's sort of a it's more or less more about my dad and was popping my own eye out, that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm running around popping eyeballs out. Have you found those bodies yet? To be concerned. I would say if somebody does this in their teen years, it's already too late. I don't know why it occurred. That's the problem with this right here because we're talking homicidal now. And that's kind of the area. Like, I can figure out why he's like a rapist type of guy, why he turned into the socio, but when you start getting into the homicidal part, like he brings up his dad. Like when you go down this whole thing, it's pretty obvious that there was a problem with his dad. And his dad was this weird doctor, right? And a lot of these doctors are total sociopaths too, right? And they tend to get in these fields And it said that he abused them. So it's all physically abused. Yes, father and classmates. So I don't know about the classmate thing. The classmates may be, see, okay, if you see a weirdo kid come into class and he's in there bringing in dead crows and weird stuff, then what they're doing is kind of reacting to his weirdness. It's not because he was bullied in class. Okay, so we know he became a socio before he went to school, before these things. So before he was in junior high, right? So it's before that. So it would not be equated to the classmates, okay? Mm-mm. So the father portion, yes. Okay, so that's what matters. So the physical abuse, they tried to say he did not get sexually abused, but however, we are talking about a time period in the 90s when he already killed everybody where they okayed rape, okay? Their version of consent was rape. So it matters on this breakdown. And so we are finding out in these stories that the father had been sexually abusing their sons, right? Be it themselves physically and sexually abusing them and not considering it sexual abuse or whatever their bullshit is about it, and or getting them raped by somebody else, right? So I don't know if that's in this portion or anything, and they wouldn't be honest enough to tell you. Another portion that they left out was his religion. So the religion would definitely be a part of this because he was a self-loather and he was in the closet gay. And the only thing I can attribute to what they were trying to say in his therapy, where is it? Oh, okay. So so now he's already a sociopath, right? They didn't diagnose him as one, and you'll see this actually going on in the history of all these men, right? So they didn't diagnose them as a sociopath. They diagnosed them with other things that were not related, such as, okay, so the mass shooters, right, in 1999. The guy was a total sociopath. They called him a psychopath, but the original diagnosis was depression and some other bullshit, right? So here's where it's interesting because they diagnosed him with schizophrenia. Now, he may have that as well. I don't know how that's fitting in here, but they said possibly more than one personality. Okay, so I have a problem with that because what we saw on the video yesterday or early this morning was him being a sociopath, a typical one. So they would typically call it a mask, right? So he's fake presenting himself in a certain way to mass manipulate a group of people, right? So he set up some sort of thing to get dead animals. Now, as you see, this is in his history. Found a dead crow in the road, right? He has this thing about finding dead animals, and he found it in the road, or at least so he said, right? Put it in his pocket and place it on the teacher's desk when she wasn't looking. So it's telling you he likes to be sadistic and he's obsessed with dead things, right? And being obsessed with dead things in certain ways may not be the indicator that someone's going to be a serial killer, because I was thinking of these other guys where I mean, I know there's a lot of PETA people that would really hate this, but there's people that like all the like stuffed animals in their house. I mean, you could debate that they're socios too or whatever, but there was a guy my mom used to date, and he had all these like stuffed snakes, and I was a little fascinated by it as a kid. And I doubt he was out murdering people. I doubt it, but I'm kind of looking at that too, right? So when you're looking at this, you got to kind of like, what is the other indicators in this that he's going to go do some crap like this? But anyway, so they're talking about multiple personalities. So no, I don't believe he had that. I think what they were noticing is a couple things here. Him being a socio and masking and trying to fit into different situations. Kind of like he could be autistic too. That was another thing in here where I was like, yeah, they didn't identify autism back here. And he did a weird thing by looking away and blinking down. That could also be an indication, because he's a big ass pathological liar, but it could be an indication of he has that issue too, which they did not diagnose back then. And that's another thing that I think might be mixed in with some of these guys, is the autism portion, because of the off cue not matching action type of thing, but he knows what he's doing. So it isn't a thing where it's like, I'm mentally ill and I'm another person. I don't even know how I'm going on, right? No, it's very calculated. So you'll see the calculation in the incident that's on the video. Okay, so he has a history of the dead crow thing, right? Okay, so now he gets some more dead animals. Now, I think he got 2 of them, possibly. I'm not really sure. But he claims that he went down the side of the road and just so happened to be watching these people run over things. Now, this is in the interest in this. Let me jump back to this really quick and then we'll go back to that. His manner of killing, he strangles them, right? That was his manner of killing, right? So he's not a butcher, you know? So he's not into like butchering animals. He would be into more strangling them, right? So now I don't know if he strangled these other animals or what the hell happened. But what was interesting about that little setup there is that he had it spray paint the neck. And so he had an interest in strangling things to death, right? Why? I don't know. But in the video, he takes a dead animal, lays it in the road. I'm sure that's exactly what he did. He laid it in the road, got his Polaroid out, plotted to do this sort of thing, right? So it's very sadistic. So that you see the sadistic game that he played with the teacher, right? So now he wants to play this game with the media. I do not know. He's just psychotic on that level, okay? But this is where he gets thrilled from doing this, right? So he lays the animal in the road and then knew that the sprayer was coming down, I guess. Or maybe it was that he saw the sprayers and then, I don't know. It seems more of a plot, like he knew to do this, like he thought it out. And then he laid it on the road where the line would be painted. So he put it right where the neck would be, right? I couldn't show it on this channel because I can, but they had some type of warning on that video if you see it, because it showed the dead animal in the photos he took, but I didn't want any problems with that. Okay, so anyway, so he lays the dead animal on this area, and so you notice it's sprayed right across his neck, I believe, its whole head and stuff. So then he thought it was hilarious, and so he took out his camera, and so he takes photos, but he had his son with him. And these sociopath dads do not care about creating more sociopaths, right? It's just one of those things. Like, they're just socios. They don't give a shit. They'll rape their own sons. They'll do all these things, right? So when you say, oh, what if you had a daughter? They don't care. They'll rape their daughter, okay? So he brings his son. This is totally, I don't know how much the son knew or how old the son was at the time. Like, the son may know that he was being, facetious, just being evil here. And going, look how funny this is, son. Ha 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 ha. Yeah. So anyway, they spray paint the thing over the neck of the dead animal, right? So then he takes Polaroids of it. Then they said down the street there was a dead cat. And I'm like, well, I don't know if he put the dead cat there. He could have, because he has a thing about dead animals, right? So I don't know, but I'm pretty sure he set the whole thing up. So then he goes to the media, I guess, and then starts chewing out the people that spray painted the thing over the neck, going, God, this is so horrible. Why'd you guys do that to the animal? Blaming someone else, right? Created a conspiracy. And he's almost laughing through the whole thing, right? Nobody picked this up at the time of, obviously, right? And it's just like, yeah. And someone's like, who's running around with a Polaroid? I go, well, actually, I did back then. I actually had a video camera and a Polaroid with me at almost all times. I'm just one of the rare people that did that. But here, yeah, it's a little, suspicious, because when you look at his background, you see that setup was more than likely from him, and he wanted to get a thrill by doing something totally evil, right? So that's a sociopath. That's not from schizophrenia. That is not from multiple personality disorder. So another portion of it, and see, those would be considered the others, but I do not believe he had multiple personality disorder. I think what was happening, depends how you want to look at it. It's very debatable, because you could look at it like, oh, well, now he's being someone else, and now he's being somebody else. But he's actually still being himself. He's just presenting himself in that way to fit in somewhere, to manipulate and be evil, right? It's not for the situation like a normal, like autistic person would, though this may explain some additions in his thing. This is my personal opinion. Somebody in the field may want to debate me on this, but this is definitely from what I know personally from these type of people, is that they know what they're doing. And also, in addition to this, the religious background was important because he's hardcore conservative, okay? And they got married at a church. And he definitely, I would not consider him bisexual. They put him as bisexual, but I believe he was actually just gay. And he did that as a mask, like it's their beard, right? They actually talked about beards, how back in the day they couldn't be out and proud gay, right? But in addition to him being gay, there's a self-loathing aspect to this where you couldn't come out as gay, and it is possible that he was fighting that urge of him being out and proud gay, and he had to go put up a front and and maybe that's why they're saying multiple personality thing, because he's this other person over here, but they all had to do that, right? A lot of the gays had to do that back in the day. So I wouldn't call them multiple personality disorder. That's pretty effed up, right? So I think, but I'm thinking when they diagnosed him at the time, maybe they were looking at that type of thing right there that socios do. But I wouldn't call every gay person a sociopath. So, but it's just one of the additions and what happened here in this story. He's presenting himself in this way that, he's like this normal person with this woman he married and then had some kids, right? So he's presenting this like all-American family in, where's this, Indiana or something? Yeah, Indiana. So this all-American family in Indiana, but it's purposeful. It's not, oh, I'm, this thing. It's just like, maybe the inner dynamic here. But to me, it's like leading on to that the father sexually abused him. That would be the case in a lot of these. So even with the other people that we've been talking about on this, they were sexually abused by their father in one way, shape, or another, right? And so then their crimes are sexual, but it's not because of lust. They called it lust, and I was like, no, rape is that's a hate crime. So it's not about that. But it's like, it's almost like this inner dynamic with him where it's like, I'm gay, but I need to fight it and I need to rid of these people. I don't know why he feels the need to rid of the people. That's the thing, because it doesn't really lead on, because it's just like, okay, here's the family, right? In 1947. Then it goes into Sister Barb was born, Brother Brad, Brother Richard, and they're a lot older, right? 7 and 9 by the time... Yeah, they were born when he was 7 and 9 years old. So there's quite a difference there in ages. Okay, so then it goes, he started attending high school. He was 14 in high school? How is he 14 in high school? It says in 1961, 14. He started attending high school at North Central High. I was in 9th grade then, and I was actually, my age was younger considering the average. I don't know. Was active in biology, geology, government, international relations, and the chess club. Okay. Friends remember that Herb used to ponder what it would like to taste human urine. Now, that, I don't know if there's something that points to his father and him with that one. That's the only thing where it's like, okay, there's an indicator here of something, like something weird. And this type of thing would have happened between that first 10-year thing, right? And I think it's even younger than that, maybe even 1 through age 9. But I was just like, let's just for hell's sake go between the ages of 1 through 10. But it would definitely be younger because you're forming your whole everything, your sexuality, your personality, everything throughout from, the time you're born through this period of time. And then it's sort of like, it doesn't stop, but it's sort of like this is like your roots, like the roots, right? And then the plant starts coming out, right? It's almost like that. I don't know if I can explain it any better, but it's almost like the root of you. And then once the roots are planted, then the top of the flower starts coming out, and it turns it's like a fucking weed, dude. By 14, right? So by the time that comes out, it's too late. That's permanent, right? And so this would have came into play prior. So I don't know what the hell happened there. Maybe somebody else can answer that, but to ponder that, I'm not clear. It's almost like you would have to know the abuses that happened to him, and I would have to find another case where that's answered for, right? Where there's another case where that was a thing in it, and then they hadn't had an explanation, like you saw the story from the earliest point, to know where that came from. I don't have any reference to why that would be at this moment. Found a dead thing in the road. Okay, so a lot of us found dead things in the road. Some kids probably did throw it up to scare parents. You know what I mean? Like, you're looking at that. Is it necessary? I mean, it's not a good thing to be acting like that. But is that going to tell you that he's going to go serial killing? You know? Not necessarily. But yeah. But again, I don't remember. We didn't have any like thing like that in junior high. There wasn't any thing like I want to see dead animals. In fact, I'm just looking at myself. By the time I hit junior high, I couldn't deal with seeing dead anything. And this is the portion where, okay, all my empathy came properly and everything else. And then I couldn't deal with seeing, in science, they had a dissecting and I couldn't deal with it. And I'd constantly almost pass out and I'd have to leave class. Okay. I literally had to, and I had to go to the doctors. So so I couldn't deal with it at all. And then what was the other part of it? Oh, and then this is when I got some PETA shit back here, and I stopped eating animals completely. And then I ended up in the emergency room again, being anemic. So I had an opposite thing after the fish eyeball. Okay, because it really grossed me out. Because I didn't know what I was doing, right? It was more of like, it was almost like it was a biology class, whatever, when you start like dissecting things. It was almost like that, and then you got grossed out, and then you could never do it again. It was like that, right? So the proper thing developed in me, whereas in this guy, it didn't develop. That's the only way I can explain the difference in it. And how do you know when it doesn't develop, right? Well, he's showing it at 14. My stuff happened much earlier in that age 8 thing. So if I didn't develop it, then I very well, maybe I could have turned into a Jeffrey Dahmer. That's really like the fine line to this stuff. It's really weird, but yeah, it just didn't develop. Why didn't it develop? And why did he find enjoyment in it? I didn't find enjoyment in it necessarily. It was more like, this is fucking weird, you know? What am I doing? And then it's just like one day, like I realized what I was doing and it was totally disgusting. You know what I mean? It was like that. But for him, it turned into this thing where he has an obsession of where he wants to like continue this on. Now, I don't know, like to me, when I'm reading this, it seems like he may have actually got animals and started like strangling them. He could have. He could have sat down and strangled some animals with his hands or whatever. And then there's no bodily, they're not mutilated, right? And I think a lot of times when they're looking at these serial killers and when they're looking at the animal thing, I think that they're typically looking for mutilated animals, like they're cutting them up, right? But this is not his MO and how he operates. He likes to strangle. So all he has to do is strangle some animals and then toss them in the road, like that one thing, right? That's pretty brave, I mean, bold. Like, how do you get these animals, you know? So I'm questioning, like, how he's doing that, and it just is a thing where it may not have got caught, right? Because it's not like if you walked into a forest or you saw it on the side of the road, would you assume that somebody they're not mutilated, right? So you would think, oh, maybe got hit or died of a disease, right? Or some other thing like that, right? You wouldn't catch him doing it. So that's kind of the thing with this guy, which is so weird. But then it goes into this thing. Father secretly took him to psychological tests. Okay, limited record show diagnosed with schizophrenia. So I got to that. I think the diagnosis was incorrect, but he could have schizophrenia with it. It would just mean, I guess he hears voices on top of it. I don't know. But like I said, on this thing, it said that that actually could be correlated to child abuse. So, dad here is a major question because that's the person that is related to the physical abuse in his story and why it's so important. And the overly religious families at this time and the hard controlling conservative thing. Because there's a reason why he started killing gays while he's also a gay man, okay? So, when he got into high school, he was not part of the in crowd. I mean, how many people were not part of the, this is like, some of this stuff is kind of like, okay, well, that was like most of the kids, because there was only like a group of the clique, you know, the popular kids, right? And then everybody else didn't fit in that crowd, right? So what does that really mean? But it's all usually alone and he never dated. Okay, there was a lot of kids that were loners, they didn't date, okay? That doesn't mean you're going to turn into a serial killer. I'm just saying, but yes, is that in addition to his weirdness? Maybe, yeah. It depends because the in-crowd people were sociopaths at our school. So you're saying you didn't fit in with the mean kids. You know what I mean? Like you could view it in that way too, right? Depends. Graduated high school and was accepted into Indiana University at 18, right? And this is where he met his wife. They were drawn to each other due to their strong conservative views. Now, for him, he's looking for a pawn. Nobody is a human on this universe, okay? So it's just him that matters. And he's looking, now I don't know why, but anyway, I guess he just looked for somebody that gave him some attention maybe, right? And he's like, she'll work out. You know, it's really that ridiculous with these socios, right? It's not like he can fall in love with them really, or anything like that. It's some sort of pawn. So then it goes into this. He dropped out of college after freshman year and then worked at Indianapolis Star as a copy boy. Okay, so he dropped out of college, became a copy boy. Just weird stuff. So he was in college, I guess, 2 years, maybe, at the most. Married Juliana in a Methodist church. Okay, so that's the only indication of this religious portion of things. However, this is in the 60s, so it is more than likely they probably were hardcore Christian up in here, and it's very relevant to his bullshit. Okay, so then after this is so weird. So when he turned 24 to 25, he spent 2 months in a psychiatric hospital, 6 months after being married. Now, I don't know why that is or what happened here. So, like, there's a lot of information missing in that portion to give a good, to give anything to this. But that's around the ages, like, where they consider that you're fully developed between that 25, 27, right? This is when you start seeing people spin out, which is kind of interesting in the story, but it was like 24 to 25. So he married somebody that he's technically probably not physically attracted to. That's another thing. Hard to say what happened there. Between the ages of 26 to 38. Now, it doesn't tell you what he did in between this time, so there's some questions. So it's not typical for somebody to just turn 38 and start killing people. It would be, he did have something with the animals. So in the middle of this could be more animal shenanigans. It could be that they just didn't catch them earlier things. It could be, it's hard to say, but you are going to still see some activity here that he has done prior to it. So he worked at the motor vehicles, which totally seems typical. Okay, so odd behavior events during this time. Okay, so here's what he did. He sent Christmas cards with him and another man dressed in drag. Okay, so here, so there's something where he's coming, maybe he's coming to terms that he's gay, because it's like Christmas cards with him and another man dressed in drag. Okay. Like, it's, Like, he wants to come out of the closet, maybe. I don't know. And he knows it's shocking to everybody. I have no idea. Like, but this is what he does, right? He does things like that to get a rise out of somebody, and he enjoys it, right? That's not from being schizophrenic. That's not from having multiple personality disorders, but it is from somebody that's in the closet and totally psychotic as far as their PD goes. Okay, so they earned title of program director, but here's his urination thing. Urinated on a letter addressed to the governor and was terminated. Yeah. Who else do you know done that? Okay, so this is actually not a normal thing to do. It's not a good thing to do. It's bizarre. So yeah, so there's indications here that their behavior is of a socio here. So then in 79, 81, 84, he had some children, right? Yeah, so he popped out some kids here. So in this period of time, I feel bad for these kids because the second one I think is the one that he brought to take photos of that dead animal. And then, so that was in 1981. I don't know when that other video was done. So maybe he was, I don't know how old he was there, but yeah, he's a victim in that. And he found a head in the yard, which it'll get to that. Okay, so in 1985, what's interesting here, he gets a minor. So he's fine with raping kids and everything else. Okay, so wait a minute. Okay, so in 84, he had his last kid. Okay, that's the third child. Okay, but in 85, the following year, after those kids were born, he's off doing this. Now, in between this, I just feel there might be a lot of stuff missing in this because it's a little, like I don't know why this would just start up here. Like, you need some explanation as to why it would only start up at age 38. It may be that he got away with some other things prior. There could be a lot of things in this, okay? Or maybe initially he didn't kill the men that he was with, and then it progressed into him wanting to, and then it turned into that. I'm not sure. There's some other things in this that just don't feel like it's together. But anyway, at age 38, the body of Eric, who was 17 years old, who's a minor, was found in Indiana. So in Indiana, they want to have the legal age of consent at 16. So they were pro-raping kids, or still pro-raping kids in that state. But anyway, here he's considered a minor, okay? So he was able to get a teen. Why is a 38-year-old with a 17-year-old, right? That's really bad to begin with, right? Indiana, you need to change your fucking laws, you pedos. But anyway, so this is in 1985. Now, in 1985, they actually did not use the word rape. So it was really interesting to bring this up because later in this, they try to say these things were consensual. They are not consensual. There was no consensual sex in this technically, mostly when you're talking about him with a 17-year-old, okay? But the manner of how he killed people, okay. So we're going to go down on this one in the same year. Okay, so while drinking and driving, he committed a hit and run. Okay, so this is a typical sociopath thing, right? Drinking and driving, right? Most people know you do not drive while you're drunk, and no matter how drunk you get, you're not going to drive. This guy does anything reckless and puts everybody at risk, right? So this is him, and this is the typical, thing of ASPD. So he goes and he does that. Hit and ran. So he took off, right? Warrant filed for his arrest and charged with auto theft. So now he also steals cars, I guess. And conspiracy to commit theft, right? So everything he's doing is criminal, right? So he's still being a criminal in his 30s. He's almost 40 now, and he's still, like, doing all these crimes, right? And he killed somebody already, right? And then at age 40, he beat the conspiracy charge after one-day bench trial. I have no idea what the hell happened there, but he got away with it, okay? And then his father dies, right? I don't know how his father died. Did he kill him too? Like, I don't know. Alright, So after his father died, he borrows $4,000 from his mom, which back in 1988 would be probably close nearest to almost 10 grand today, maybe somewhere near that. Anyways, from his mother, and opened a Save a Lot thrift store. Okay, so he went and he started his own business. And then the following year, they find the body of Stephen was found, and he was 26 years old. Okay, so now two bodies have been found by the time he was 42. And in 1990, after making $50,000 in his first year of owning Save-A-Lot, he opened a second store. So he's smart enough to run businesses, right? So all he had to do is borrow money from mom and go open the store. It did well. Opened another one, so he knows how to make money and do all this crap, right? He's a straight up socio. He could do all this and just run people over. But in 1990 and 43, okay, so the body of Clay was found. He's 32. So as you see, he started off with the kid. And then, like, the ages are getting older. It's kind of interesting, but it's going to start going down again, whatever. So he doesn't have any specific age range other than, maybe in their 20s to 30s. We'll see if there's any older ones, but this is what happened. So then he moved to Westfield District. Okay, so there's a problem in it because, like, okay, so they found bodies prior. Now, I don't know where they're finding the bodies. I would have to go through the story even more to understand this. But, so he moved. So where he was prior, it could be that there's other bodies. They don't know where they are, right? So he moves to this new place. And then in 93, this guy Michael disappears, right? He's 22. When he's 46, so all this is in his age 46. Michael, Johnny, Jeffrey, Richard, Alan, they were all reported missing. And then in 94, Stephen, Alan, and Roger disappears, right? They go missing. Alan was last seen leaving a gay bar, right? That's the only one that's like very specific on that one. And then in 94, okay, at his age 47 through 48, Save-A-Lot business began to plunge. All right, so now he's like, F my business, right? Problems in marriage between Herb and Juliana. Okay, so he started treating his employees like they were below him. Well, he would always treat them below them, I'm sure. But he's being more overly like a piece of shit now. And because everybody's like a pawn, right? So he doesn't care. And then reports of him leaving the store and returning with alcohol on his breath. Okay. So here's the part with ASPD and them having addiction problems. No, they're assholes because they're assholes, not because they're drinkers. As you see, because when you go into his history, you see he's a piece of shit the whole time, right? So him drinking on top of it is just bringing out his true self, okay? So, yeah, stop using that excuse for men and trying to say that drinking turned them into a monster, because that's actually not true. They were a monster before they started drinking, and they need to be accountable for their shitty actions, right? So, and we're not talking about the general population that has addiction issues. This has to do with the people that have ASPD and they have the addiction problem because of they need to get highs, right? So yes, there is a difference. There definitely is a difference. I've ran across so many addicts. I could tell you without a doubt there's a huge difference. So no matter how much those people did drugs, they did not turn into this ASPD asshole, okay? They didn't. And now they will do things that are not great sometimes, but they did not go and start murdering people. They did not go start raping people. They did not start robbing banks, okay? They may, like, you may see them do some credit card fraud, you know, like on a thing because they need to go fund the addiction, right? This guy is doing stuff to get a high to harm other people. And so to use that as an excuse is ridiculous. But they've been doing that. So I'm just trying to differentiate that type of thing to this bullshit here. But yeah, is he having problems? He probably is having problems in his head because, not because he kills people, but because of the fact that he's a closeted homosexual, like that type of thing right there. So he's having a inner struggle, but you need more information on the child abuse portion, to really get into the nitty gritty of that. But he needs to kill them. So the only thing I could think of is because they keep saying it was a sin back then in its portion to annihilate them because they're evil. So it may be coming from that, because it was so much hate speech back here. Okay, so arrested for drinking and driving. There he goes again, being his reckless criminal ASPD self, right? Sentence, he can't stop, right? You could still be a drunk and they don't drive. There's a lot of people that know better than to drive. But he likes to run and hit people. Like, it doesn't bother him killing somebody in a car because he's killing people, right? Do you see that? So it doesn't bother him if he ran over some kids or anything like that because he's a murderer. So, okay, so then his son, this is so horrible. Okay, so here we go, 94. Okay, how old is his son here? Because I want to go back. Okay, so this is in 94. His son was born in 81. So 91. Oh, he's 13 here? Yeah, so his son's about 13 here? Shit. Okay, so his son's about 13 here. His son found a human skull in the backyard. Can you imagine this? I'm just like, I'm in the backyard and I find some dead bodies, and then, like, Dad, what is this? So Dad tells him, I'm going to assure his family that it was remains of a cadaver from his father's medical practice. Now, he's a habitual liar. However, I thought this was interesting, this one, because he blames his father. And I'm trying to figure out what the hell did his father do from his medical practice that maybe caused maybe some of this in his childhood, right? I don't know, from his father's medical practice, like, did he have a cadaver that he, this would be interesting. I hope to God, like, the dad, like, now, see, you could find something else in this, like, the dad was also a total freakazoid, right? I think he was in some way, but I don't know what he did here. Because my dad was pretty damn creepy, too, okay? So he had to look at dead bodies. Thankfully, I don't, there's a lot that could be said with this crap, dude. So I don't know if he did something at the house or brought his son to something to watch him do his work, or I don't know. I can't answer it, but it's interesting that he blamed him and said that, because it doesn't. It wasn't believable anyway, because if it had happened that he had done something to something for his medical thing, then you need to question the father that is now no longer here. I don't know. I can't answer it. It was a weird thing I was thrown in here. So then it says, okay, so then, and he turns 49. Now he's 49. He shows up at a gay bar, and Tony Harris gets his license plate number and suspicious of her growing. Okay, also, he used, like, the name, like, Brian Smart. I was like, never trust a Brian, you guys. I go, what the hell's with that? I think he used a whole different name when I was reading on, I think it was Wikipedia. Yeah, I don't know. He used to use a different name. So the police confront his wife, right? And then Herb tells his lawyer he's going to kill himself. This is the typical socia. Oh, my God. Okay, so they start getting, like, overly emotional, right? Like, you're stopping me, this, okay, so now he's doing the over dramatic thing, right? And yes, a lot of times they may actually do it, okay? Because they don't want to be held accountable for anything. This is the ridiculousness of these guys. And so they could even throw them into jail, right? Like, you could read right now in the media, some guy got accused of raping some kid, right? They throw them in jail and in prison or whatever, and they go and kill themselves in jail, right? That's the typical socio. They're not upset because of the crimes that they did. They just don't want to be held accountable for it. And then, maybe some other issues with this, such as that because he won't be able to do it anymore, right? He's going to be in prison for the rest of his life, and that's just too much. So it's like, well, if I can't have my fun, then the game's over, right? Doing that, right? I love how Ray ignores it, though, right? He's like, I'm going to kill myself. Ray's like, that's cool. So anyway, his wife files for divorce, right? Thankfully, she's not one of those, this is all a lie, it's all made up, and I'm going to stand by my man. Thankfully, she didn't do that. Okay, so clothes save a lot stores. So Herb described as deeply troubled. Oh, you think? Okay, so he turns 50. And she tells attorney of bones found in backyard. I mean, how did you not notice the bone? Not notice any bones before? Okay, so she admits that they only had consummated their marriage 6 times in 25 years of marriage, right? How did you stay married to this guy? You know what I mean? That's pointless. That's because he was raping a bunch of gay guys and killing them because he's not bisexual. He's gay. That's why I'm leaning more on he's gay. He's not into women at all. I guess out of the 3 times he had kids, and then the other 3 times was like, I'm done. You know what I mean? It's just like this thing. She's an object. That's it. Like, okay, I need you here in my face. You gotta help me seem like a normal guy. Yeah, I'm not into guys. I'm into women. Here's my beard. It's that thing. So then he goes, Herb became aware of his imminent arrest and drove to Canada. So he drove to Canada. I think he's gonna, I don't know, but, he left a note citing his failing marriage and businesses as a reason for his suicide and shot himself in the forehead with a, 357 Magnum, right? Would that really matter to him? Depends. I don't think the failing marriage is a big deal. The businesses, he was letting them go. He kind of, jumped all over him, right? So, no. And he wouldn't take responsibility for the murders, right? So basically, it's sort of a conspiratorial thing. It's like, I'm going to leave this mystery out for you guys to make you think this is why I actually killed myself. And that wouldn't be the reasons. More or less that because he lost control of his playground. Right? And you're not going to take me. That. Okay, so sex, male, race, white, linked to 18 but assumed to be more. Okay, so they said they think maybe there might be up to 25 other victims or maybe more than that. Okay, United States, Indiana, and Ohio. So, okay, he killed in Ohio and in Indiana. And there may be more. They just didn't catch it. Type of killer, sexual. We should just call it rapist. Okay, so his height is unknown. How do you not know his height? Okay. Location, he was born in Ohio. His birth, he's the first of 4. He's like the Josh Duggar of the family. Okay, so he was raised by both parents. He's the oldest. His parents are still together. He did not fit in. Yes. Okay, teased while in school, yes. Physically attractive. Yeah. No. 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 Did you see his picture? Physical defect. 2 screws in jaw from surgery. Speech defect. No. Physical abuse. Yes. Father and classmates. Okay. Sexually abused. No. And I would say that is probably not correct. Father's occupation. Anesthesiologist. I don't know what the hell happened here, but something bad happened in this father thing. Age at first sexual experience. Probably his wife. He did not date much before her. What do you mean he didn't date much? Nobody knows. I think there was childhood sexual abuse. This is my opinion. It leads to that, right? Okay, mother's occupation, homemaker. So she didn't work, okay? She was the home slave, right? Okay. Father abused drugs. No. Mother abuse. Anything. No, no. Highest grade in school. Second year in college. Highest degree. High school diploma. Okay. Served in the military. No. So he doesn't have that in his background. Applied for a job as a cop. No, thank God. Worked in law enforcement. No. Okay. Fired from jobs. Yes. The Bureau of Motor Vehicles for urinating on desk and letter addressed to governor. Thought you said he urinated on a letter addressed to the governor. Oh, urinated on desk and urinated on the letter addressed to governor. Okay. He urinated on the desk? I don't know why that would be. Should we try to figure that one out? I'm like, okay. Type of jobs work: copier, clerical, various part-time jobs, owner of a Save-A-Lot thrift store. Right? So that, okay, so employment status during series, owner of thrift stores, right? Possibly during other jobs. Sexual preference. Okay, so it's trying to say bisexual. I'm saying he's just gay and he was trying to hide behind a thing. Marital stat. Married but in middle of divorce at time of death. Number of children 3, which means absolutely nothing in the context of all this stuff. Lives with children. Yes, and extremely involved with their lives. Yeah, and brought him, to get, an animal spray painted on. Yeah, he was a great dad. Hell no. Living with spouse. Okay, animal torture. No, I would consider this. This is interesting. So there's obvious things that he did, bad things with dead animals at a minimum, right? He more than likely strangled some animals, but yes, that would be. So this is where they don't have it in here of him mutilating or doing something bad with dead things. Like, that's a thing. Versus taking them and torturing them, right? Like, he's kind of doing something torturous to them after death, right? So that's an indicator. And you'll see this actually when he kills people, right? So it matters, but they don't have it on the questionnaire, the thing about the animal stuff, right? So it's not necessarily that he, like, skins them alive or some crazy thing. He's taking their dead bodies and doing horrible things to them. So, okay, fire setting. No. I mean, we don't really know, but no. Bedwetting. This is so annoying. So many kids wet the bed. They're not serial killers. That's just a form of, like, other things from abuse. But they have this on there. And I was like, I peed the bed forever. Okay, you guys, that was from abuse. And I didn't turn into a serial killer. So why the fuck is this on here? Like, it's annoying. Because I could there's many kids that have done this, and it could be for a number of reasons. It could be from health reasons. It could be from abuse, but not always, right? They tried to say, what was it then? They said that they're just not mature, like something about it. Anyways, who cares? Okay, abused drugs. So yes, he did cocaine and pot. Abused alcohol. Yes. So these are typical things that socios do, right? They're pointing it out. And there's I'm going to stress this till the cows come home. This is very different than some other addict that, let's say they got raped and abused from their father and they're going through it, right? They're not a sociopath. They're just dealing with pain. There's a different thing, but they're not off killing people. They're not off doing these horrible, horrible things. Very different. Been to psychologist, hospitalized for 2 months. I want to know more about that hospitalization, because it's like, did he voluntarily go in, or did the wife throw him in there? Like, what was going on there? Because there is kind of an addition with him pissing all over us. It's just sort of it reminds me, if I'm thinking of any other serial killer, it's reminding me more of the Robert Durst type, where he obviously had multiple things going on. And I do believe he was autistic on top of being a serial killer. And that is something that Robert Durst would do, is piss on a desk. Yeah. So, yeah, it could be related to that. That's why I was wondering about the autistic thing in this one too, because there's somewhat of relatability in those two individuals where it's just bizarre shit, And then they're also a socio, right? So that there's like an addition. There's like some additions in it from some of the things we're doing. Okay, so hospital for too much. Okay. Time in her forensic hospital. No. Diagnosis. Father secretly took him to psychologists as a child and had lengthy testing done. God, the testing back then was horrific. They didn't get to the point of those. Report shows schizophrenia and possibly multiple personalities. No, they didn't get him for ASPD. How is that? I told you they're not getting it right. But if I read, I think it was on the wiki thing. So or somewhere else where it did say ASPD. But it's not written here. No further documentation. They didn't get him right. That's the problem. I don't know why they were thinking schizophrenia. Like I would need more info, but maybe I don't know why the pissing on the death would be that. Okay, so Robert Dirks did have that, I think, because he was fucking. I don't know what the hell he's having conversations. Committed previous crimes. Yes, charged with theft and conspiracy to commit theft. What about the animal stuff? You guys seem to overlook that. Spent time in jail. No. See, he got away with all of it. Spent time in prison. No. Killed prior to series age. It says no, but I'm not really comfortable with that. No. I was like, number of victims, 16 identified to him, expected to be more. Victim type, homosexual men. Gender of victims, male. Race of victims, white. So he went after himself. Right? Isn't that strange? Like, it's not like he's like, yeah, it's just, that was his sexual, I guess his preference of something. And then he goes, oh, he got a 15-year-old too. So he killed, 3 minors. One would be considered a minor in their state, and then 2, 17. Actually, I did not check. Okay, so Ohio's the same where they let you rape kids. Okay, so he killed technically 3 minors. Okay, then he got 2 20-year-olds, 1 21, 2 22, 3 26, 1 27, 28, 31, 2 31s, 34, and 46. He got a 46-year-old. He got 1 older one. That's quite an array of ages there. Okay, so method of killing, strangulation. Type of serial killer, organized lust. I would not consider this lust. He just literally wants them to hate crimes on a bunch of people. How close did killer live? No. Killer occurred in home of victim. No. Killing occurred in home of killer. Yes. So where's the wife? So where's the wife? Okay, so the wife, was she like a homebody? I don't know. We need more information. Weapon, no weapon. So he just strangled them, what, with his hands? Apparently. Rape. It says no. Mutual sex. Now watch, this is so weird. Tortured victims. Strangled them. Stalked victims? No. Overkill. Burn them after death. Quick and efficient? No. Use blindfolds? No. Bound the victims? Yes, with handcuffs. Yeah, so when they came over, it sounds more like he bound them and then he probably raped them. Why do they say mutual sex? Like when you read this, he bound them with handcuffs so they couldn't do anything. So he was probably being like the most sadistic piece of shit ever. And maybe they got scared. There could be a lot of things to this, you guys. Did he give him anything? You know what I mean? Like, was anybody there? Like, nobody really knows because he desecrated the body so bad. You're going to see what he did here. But he got rid of the body so bad that it's hard to identify all the victims because of what he did here. And I don't know why they would say mutual sex. So the only thing that seemed mutual in this was maybe the hookup, right? So when he met him at a bar or wherever he met them, He's like, come back to my place. Okay, at that point in time, then after that is probably rape. I'm going to handcuff you. And then at that point, then things turn really dark and scary and he strangled them. Do you know if they were alive while he was doing those things? No, you don't. He may have did that to their dead bodies, you guys, because he's fixated on dead things, right? So you need to that's a little shady right there. Like that right there, I would not consider that's mutual at some point. Okay, sex with the body. No. How do you know? It's just a crazy thing. They say mutilated body. No. Well, watch what it says later. Ate part of the body. No. Drank victim's blood. No. Posed the body. No. Took totem. Body parts. No. Took totem. Personal items. Robbed victim. Or location. Okay. Disposal of bodies, right? Left at scene, no attempt to hide. Okay, yes. Use bones as gravel for his yard. Okay, but they put no for mutilated the body. I mean, I guess the way they're I don't know, you guys. Okay, left at scene, hidden. Yes, put bones down a creek at his residence. Left at scene, buried. Yes, buried in burn pile. Move, no attempt to hide. Move, bury, cut off, and disposal. No, no, no. Moved to home. No. Sentencing. Okay, committed suicide before he could be arrested. Okay, yes. Okay, so his date of death was July 3rd, 1996. Okay, and references The Dark Side, Court TV, Crime Library, 2005. The Secret Life of Serial Killer, 97. Weinstein F. Wilson, 98. Where the bodies are buried. Okay. So the story that made the media recently is this. Okay. A ninth victim of suspected gay serial killer identified. So they've only identified this much. Because as you see, he did all sorts of things to their body after the fact. Okay, mostly if you make gravel out of their bones, like what the hell? Nobody noticed that. I don't know. There's a lot in this, so it's like what the hell. Okay, so Indiana authorities announced they have positively identified another presumed victim of herbs, the wealthy Republican businessman, husband, and father who was suspected of killing over 20 boys and young men he met at or around gay bars during the 80s and 90s. And he died by suicide in 96 at a park in Canada after police searches 18-acre Fox Hollow Farm estate in Westfield outside of Indianapolis and issued a search warrant for his arrest, right? Investigators eventually recovered over 10,000 crushed and charred bone fragments from the estate. That's what he did. He completely annihilated their bodies, you guys. Because he loves dead things. That's another thing about him. I don't know how they're coming to the conclusion that he didn't do something after their death to them or what the deal is, but that is definitely in his early history of liking dead things, okay? So, an initial investigation extracted 11 human DNA samples, of which 8, all young men, were identified and matched. A renewed effort started last year resulted in the identification of 2 new genetic profiles. And on Tuesday, the coroner Jeff Jellison revealed one of those profiles belonging to Alan Livingston, a gay man that went missing in 1993 at the age of 27. Livingston is now the 9th positively identified presumed victim of Baumeister, although authorities believe he may have killed up to 25 men and boys. A swab from Livingston's mother was used to identify her son. They credit the renewed identification efforts to a phone call he received last year from a cousin of Alan. The cousin said the family firmly believed his remains were among those found on the property, and he also said the family wanted to provide closure to the Livingston mother who was in poor health. Whether by fate or otherwise, Livingston's remains were the first to be identified, and they called Livingston's mother on Monday to deliver the news. Yesterday was an emotional day in our office. We identified a person who had been missing for over 30 years, and the person is likely a murder victim. So our first reaction was to celebrate the success of what we had done, but we very quickly turned to the stark reality that we've got another murder victim. According to investigators, Baumeister was leading a deadly double life. While he appeared to be a loving husband and father and a successful he didn't, to me, bringing his son doing that bullshit, dude. And then he didn't even have sex with his wife. That's just a front, okay? But I want to make, they kind of do not approach the story properly because of the hate crimes on the gays back then and how they had to present themselves in public. So you could say that pretty much about most gay men, that they were living a double life, right? That's what I'm just saying. Like, this is kind of a weird way to put it. But yeah, I would be more on, he had a double life of him being a serial killer. But the general thing of them being gay, yeah, they did that. So he's also mostly being a Republican. Isn't that funny? Why is he Republican? He's also suspected of cruising local gay bars for young men he lured back to his estate and strangled to death, right? Police also believe, so you guys don't think he had sex with them, or what is the deal with this? He sure as hell did, you know? Like, there's a thing with that. I believe he raped them. Their version of consent back here was rape. So, yeah, if you're going to be tying somebody up with handcuffs, something went foul there. Police also believe he was the I-70 strangler, a serial killer who killed 11 young men and boys and dumped their bodies throughout Indiana and Ohio between June 1980 and 1991. Yeah, but how many did you not find? I believe he started before that, but you're looking at, what did he do before that? Because it progressed, right? Because it progressed from him doing it there and then jumping the bodies throughout the states. But then it went to, I'm just going to leave him on my property. Like, to this big, he got all this money to have this large property. Was it just for the purpose of that? Maybe. Investigators note that the discovery of bodies from the I-70 strangler stopped when he bought his estate, leading them to believe he continued killing but used the estate as his new dumping ground, right? Because then he can hide the bodies and they're not being found anywhere, right? So he just progressed to that. So in 94, his 13-year-old son, that's right, okay, found the human skull, and then, okay, so he did an interview with the wife. She said her husband explained the bones were from an old medical skeleton used by his late father. But how could that... Okay, so she also revealed that the couple had engaged in sex intercourse only 3 times in their marriage, but the other thing said there were 3. I mean 6. It said 6, but here it's only 3. So they got pregnant for only those 3 times, and that's it in their marriage, and that she had never seen him fully naked. Okay, yeah, like he's not into women, guys. That would have been quite a clue. I was like, that would have been quite a clue. Yeah, and I would not stay married with. So yeah, but back here they were like, you have to stay married to the guy, and she was totally full Republican, I guess too, because they said they came together like that. So yeah, there they said only 3 times. The other thing said 6. So it means like each time they had sex, they had a kid, and that's the end of it because they had 3 kids. So what? That's it. The couple ran the successful Save-A-Lot chain of stores, allowing them to move into the exclusive Fox Hollow Farms. She said she forgot about the incident until November of the following year when police asked for permission to search the property. How would you forget that you found a damn skull in your fucking yard? You know what I mean? Like, I would even just by that, like, okay, there's something that's making this seem, why would this be believable to them? Like, what is going on with the dad? Like, I want to know more about the dad. She said she forgot about the incident until November of the following year when police asked for permission to search the property as part of their investigation into a string of killings targeting young gay men in the area. Police said a young man had identified Baumeister as the man who had suffocated him to the brink of death during a sexual ties, whatever, at the estate. Yeah, so he's basically like raping him. He's raping him, and then he tried to suffocate him to death. So we have a victim that lived. And where is she in this? Okay, so the Baumeister refused the request. Okay, so but Julie later consented while Herbert was out of town in June 1996, and his body was found with a single gunshot wound to the head. So they revealed in the recent investigation selection 44 remains for genetic testing, and he said it's still astounding that Livingston's were the first to be positively matched. Okay, what are the odds out of 10,000 remains? Out of 10,000, we selected 44. And the first identification is a person from the family that initiated this whole thing. Where does that come from? Let's not make anything bigger than it needs to be. Okay, so they said 4 other DNA profiles have been identified, and they were comparing those against DNA samples received from more than 30 families of missing men who may also be victims of Baumeister. I would say probably they all were. It's like, and because you don't, even before this, there's things that you don't know. Just because you don't know it doesn't mean it didn't happen. It would just mean you'd have to look like who's missing, right? So I don't know if there's any additional in the other area when he was in, what was it, Ohio? How did he get out? Because how did he get out? Because they on the other things they said they handcuffed him or something. So I'm not sure. Where's that? Where's that? I'm new to the case, so I would have to search to see if this victim spoke out like later, and so I don't know. Anyway, so that's the story of this reject. They said good looking. Come on. He looks absolutely psychotic. Like, just even look at the eyes. He has that like dark eye thing going. His eyes were so weird when he was talking. I was like, his facial expressions, it's he's not right. Like, you see the guy to the left, right? He's happy, right? I mean, genuinely happy. You could tell in the eyes he's literally happy. This dude is just like, he like you're walking into a mortuary. Like, there's this thing about it. Surprisingly, he didn't work in a mortuary. That's Chad Daybell. Surprisingly, he didn't get that job. And his wife is just like, this is the guy for me. Can you explain why? I have to ask these women, like, can you explain why? Can you explain why, like, you thought somehow this is normal and you stayed with that shit, you know? But again, the times matter because that was during the satanic panic crap, and they did not let you come out as gay. So that's why he was in the closet. That was one portion why he was in the closet. Not just because he's a sociopath, but he was in the closet because of the religious thing. And they did not talk about it. So it might be in the secondary story as they're talking to the wife. So I'll get back to that on another day or maybe tomorrow. We'll see.